What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. And as always, we have a whole lot to get into. But first, I want to start the show out with a term, and it's called situational understanding. And it refers to the ability to comprehend the various elements, dynamics, and factors at play in a given situation. It really enables individuals to make informed decisions and respond effectively to the circumstances that they're facing. So to me, I think it's extremely important that we understand the situation that we're dealing with right now. Okay, there is a plan. Listen, we say all the time on this show that the Democrats, they are extremely smart. They are not dumb. You have some of the smartest, most powerful people in the world trying to get Joe Biden across the finish line. This is not a battle. This is not a Republican versus Democrat battle. This is the machine versus the people battle. And in 2024, it is not Donald Trump on the ballot. It is our country. You have the American people and the machine. And the machine, the Washington swamp, is trying to prevent the people from getting their country back. And so I think it's important that people really embrace and understand the situation that we're going into, because it's going to get wild. Knowing your enemy's plan can provide strategic advantages. Knowing what these people are going to do, knowing what their plan is going to allow us to anticipate their actions so that we can prepare countermeasures to what they're doing. The Democrat Party and this machine, the machine is very good at catching the people off guard, just like in 2020. We had no idea what their plan was to win the election until after they already won the election. And then we go back and we're like, damn, they're good. They are good. They're smart, and most of all, they're evil. But these people are good. We didn't know that they were going to come after the ballots the way that they did. We didn't know that they were going to leverage the COVID crisis to their advantage. They leveraged the COVID crisis to get Mark Elias and Perkins Coie all out there in the country, changing election laws weeks and months before the election so that you decrease the signature verification threshold and increase the amount of ballots that were all over the country with the mass mail-in balloting. We didn't really realize this was going to happen until it already happened. And so we did not have situational understanding. We did not have understanding of the current situation back in 2020. And so I think most of all, the very most important thing we can do for 2024 is to know and understand the situation we're going in. Situational understanding. So that we can anticipate their actions and prepare countermeasures, make informed decisions, safeguard our interests, and most of all, win the freaking election. So this type of awareness, it'll enhance situational understanding, and it can be crucial in competitive situations, whether in warfare, business, or politics. So what is the plan? So we know that they're flooding the country with new people. They're flooding the country with new people and new voters so that they can solidify their power through elections. That's what they're doing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are purposely allowing millions and millions and millions of illegal immigrants into this country by using illegal asylum laws. There's no other reason why you would do this other than to solidify their vote for voters. And now you might say, yes, illegal immigrants can't vote. Yes, that's true, but their children can, right? You see how this works? So the Democrats are playing the long game. This is how these people have kept power over the decades. Nobody likes their ideas. Their ideas suck. We have not been conserving this country, right? We have, without a doubt, moved left over the years as a whole. Yeah, granted, we may come right for a little bit, 4 years, 8 years, but for the most part, we're moving left. And so Democrats always play the long game. So we know that's what they're doing with the open borders, right? And now there's a story coming out, the latest, At the southern border, there's a 15,000 person caravan that's coming into the country right now. It's on its way. As we speak, you have 15,000 illegal immigrants coming towards the country. So we know that they're flooding the country for voters, right? So that they can solidify their power. What's another plan that they're doing? They are weaponizing the justice system against Donald Trump. So they're coming at this at two different angles. And mind you, all this is planned, folks. This is not something that they just do out of thin air. All this has been planned probably since before the 2020 election. What we're watching right now and what we're going to see for the next 12 months is the machine's plan coming to fruition. So this is why I say you think 2023 was crazy. It's not going to hold a candle to what we see in 2024. It is going to be wild. I say this all the time. So you got to make sure you're buckled in because things are going to get insane. Just insane. I don't know what other word to describe it. Insane may be an understatement. But like I said, it's important that we know and understand the situation that we're going into. And so they're flooding the borders. They're flooding the country with new voters. It's the great replacement theory, and they're trying to kneecap Donald Trump in order to get Joe Biden across the finish line, because if Donald Trump wins, all this is done. It's all over, because the man has already said he's going to go in there and completely dismantle the machine. He's going to tear this thing apart, and these people are terrified. They're terrified because these people have committed crimes. What do you think a criminal is willing to do to keep themselves out of jail? About anything. Do you think they would feel good if Donald Trump got elected? No, they're terrified. They know what they've been doing for the last 8 years is a crime. These people are terrified of Donald Trump winning the election because they'll finally be held accountable for what they've done. And so that's the second plan that they're coming with. Flooding the borders with new voters and subverting democracy by weaponizing the justice system to interfere in our federal election in 2024. And if by Donald Trump getting elected, all this goes away. This throws a giant nuke bomb on their entire plan. This is a long plan, folks. This is something that's been planned out for a long time. Donald Trump was never supposed to win in 2016. This was supposed to be a seamless transfer of power and the continuation of the machine retaining power from Obama to Hillary Clinton, from Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden. Not saying that they were going to pick Joe Biden, but it was going to be somebody like Joe Biden. It was going to be a staunch Democrat, a talking head for the machine, right? A puppet for the globalist elites and the Washington swamp. So it was supposed to be Barack Obama straight into Hillary Clinton and then seamlessly into another establishment character like a Joe Biden. But Donald Trump interrupted all of that. Not Donald Trump, but we the people, interrupted that. By the will of the people and an act of God, we elected Donald Trump to go in there, and it essentially was an uppercut to the machine. And they stumbled back, and we caught them off guard, but now they're in it. They're back in the fight, and they are coming in swinging. And so I think it's important that we understand what their plan is. The reason why they have to flood the country with new voters is that even the Democrats are becoming increasingly fed up with the immigration crisis from the Democrat Party, these sanctuary cities. And I got an article here from the Revolver News. Chicago mayor says city is on the brink of collapse thanks to illegals. So Joe Biden's invasion at the U.S. border is wreaking havoc all over the nation. Back in the old days, cities like New York and Chicago didn't have to deal with a surge of illegal immigration. It was mainly the red state border towns that had to manage this issue. However, now that the red state governors had started sending illegal immigrants to these sanctuary cities, they've gotten a taste of what it's really like, and they can't handle it. Things are so dire in Chicago that the new mayor says the city services are literally on the brink of collapse, all thanks to Joe Biden's illegal immigration policies. Here is the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, from a post at End Wokeness on Twitter. Here, check this out.
The public good is already stressed. Whether it's our transportation system, our healthcare system, our education system, all of these systems are already stretched to meet the demands of families who have been here. Over the past 7 months, it's been an incredible strain on every aspect of city services.
So the city services are on the verge of collapse thanks to the illegals. So they're now turning away busloads of migrants. Not exactly the nicest thing for a sanctuary city to do, right? So here is an article from the Chicago Tribune. It says busloads of migrants were brought in the past week to Rosemont and Cicero, officials said, but were turned away. Several buses from El Paso, Texas, arrived in the past week at the metro stations in Cicero and in Rosemont near the O'Hare International Airport's remote parking. Police in Rosemont allowed migrants to get off the buses if they had someone picking them up, but threatened to impound the bus and arrest the driver for endangering the passengers if he let them out. Mayor Brad Stevens said the village board planned to consider an ordinance Monday to back up such measures. Cicero approved a measure to fine bus companies $750 per person for letting out homeless migrants, spokesman Ray Ahania said. Quote, "It's wrong to drop people on the street with nowhere to go. We think every community should do this to prevent this. They need to force the state to come up with a better plan for homeless people." Now it's suddenly wrong to drop off people with nowhere to go in Illinois. But in a red state, it's perfectly okay. Is that how they think this works? Not anymore. Chicagoland ain't seen nothing yet. They better brace for impact because the biggest horde of illegals is making its way to the U.S. as we speak. And here is a post from Maria Flores from at Maria Flores on X, says, happening now, a caravan is headed to the U.S. border and could be the largest ever at over 15,000 people. The migrant rights leader heading the group has said they won't stop until they reach the United States. These so-called migrant rights leaders should be prosecuted for what they're doing. I agree. I think any NGO or any migrant leader leading 15,000 people to our southern border to invade our country and be pushed into our country through illegal asylum laws, I think those people should be prosecuted. I do. You will stop seeing these caravans when these NGOs and these migrant leaders start getting arrested for leading massive caravans of thousands of illegal immigrants into our country. So needless to say, the black community is furious, pointing fingers at the mayor and governor for putting illegals over American citizens. And here is another post from X that says the black community in Chicago rips the mayor and governor and Biden for putting illegals before citizens. Here, check this out.
A group of people that have paid no taxes can't vote, and you put them in front of the voters.
I'm not going to pay them no damn taxes.
And so we say this to you, Mayor, Governor, President. If you think that they're that powerful that you have to acquiesce and answer to them over us, then you tell them to vote for you in these next elections.
That's right.
You tell them to support your Democratic National Convention. And we're going to show you how we feel about the Democratic National Convention.
Turn it out. Thank you.
If you think you're going to have a peaceful Democratic National Convention in the city of Chicago while our people are starving,
that's right.
Stay tuned.
These people have done this to themselves. I'm sorry, I don't feel any remorse for any of these people because they have continued voting Democrat for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Why? These people have been warned over and over and over again. Stop voting for this party. It does nothing but deceive the American people. This party does not care about democracy. That is clear. When they're trying to remove their chief political rival off the ballot. This party does not care about humane borders. We have the most inhumane stuff happening at the southern borders I've ever seen in my entire life. You have hundreds of thousands of people missing, gotaways into the country. You have women being raped, children being raped. You have drugs being trafficked. You have children being trafficked. You have some of the most inhumane stuff I've ever seen. You have, I don't know how many dead people at the southern border. It's in the hundreds, maybe even thousands now. So no, these people I don't feel sorry for. But I will say this. If you want this problem to get fixed, if you want your city back, you're going to have to stop voting for Democrat. period. But what the Democrats going to do is they're going to come out months before the election and they're going to say, see, we got it under control. We got this fixed. They're going to deceive their voters, and these people are going to continue voting Democrat. And so I feel no remorse for the people in Chicago. I feel no remorse, well, the people that voted Democrat anyways. I don't feel no remorse for the people that voted Democrat in California, Chicago, anywhere. I don't feel remorse for any of them. People that made their states sanctuary cities get exactly what they deserve. Now, if these people are starting to see who their real allies are, and it seems as if they are, there is a giant conservative tent that you're more than welcome to come into. This tent is big. We're having fun over here. It's a great place to be. You can be anybody you want. You can be happy. You don't have to watch your pronoun usage. You don't have to watch your back. You don't have to say the right things. You don't have to be politically correct. You're more than welcome into this tent. But for the people that want to continue voting Democrat and expecting these people to change anything, it's not going to happen. And so this is why I think the support for Donald Trump is going up, is reasons just like this. Because Donald Trump gave us the best southern border we have seen in decades. And people that are starting to notice why it's a good thing to have secure southern borders, they're going to vote for Donald Trump. They're going to vote for Donald Trump. This is why the list for Donald Trump is growing and the list of people voting for Joe Biden is shrinking. So they're not the only folks from the black community who are angry. The Illinois NAACP president, Teresa Haley, was just suspended for going on a tirade about the immigration crisis. Here, check this out.
But these immigrants have come over here. They've been raping people. They've been breaking into homes. They're like savages as well. They don't speak the language and they look at us like we were crazy.
Yep. Yeah. This is not immigration, folks. This is an invasion. This is what this is. These people are not going to assimilate. The Biden administration is letting murderers in, is letting rapists in, is letting thieves in. They are letting some of the worst people in. Not all of them. Nobody's suggesting that all these people are rapists and murderers, all right? So the Democrats just need to cool it. These people need to wake up and smell the coffee. They are destroying our country. The Biden administration and the radical leftists' ideology is destroying our country, and everybody is starting to see it. And it takes time, but I'm telling you, this same time next year, it is going to be off the chain. And you're going to have to make a decision. You either want to watch your country be destroyed, or you don't. It's that simple. It is that simple. If you do not want to see your country be turned to dust, then you're going to have to hold your nose and vote for Donald Trump. I get it, the guy says mean things. I get it that he's orange. I get it that he talks too much. I get it. I totally get it. I understand where people's critiques are. I really do. But I still love my country more than I hate Donald Trump. All right? So these people in Chicago, these people in the black communities that are threatening to leave the Democrat Party if this immigration problem isn't fixed, if these people keep continuing to vote for Democrat, then I don't feel sorry for them. But if they want to save their country, they're going to have to vote for Donald Trump. And they are, increasingly so. So will this anti-American travesty finally be enough to make these staunch Democrats reconsider their terrible voting choices in the future? Well, that's a question that remains up in the air. We'll find out in the next election. Yep. So there you go. So that is one plan. This is understanding the situation. This is situational understanding. You're starting to see the Democrats' plans come to fruition here. You're starting to see their plans unfold, and it's all going to happen really quick. This is not on accident. This is on purpose. They're flooding the country with illegal asylum seekers. Okay, you cannot claim asylum for money, for jobs, for economic reasons at all. That's not what the asylum laws are for. And so the Biden administration is knowingly and actively violating the Constitution by not securing our southern borders. This is impeachable, folks. If Joe Biden should be impeached for anything, it should be for what he's doing to our southern border by not protecting and guarding our sovereignty, our nation's borders. He should be impeached for this. Granted, the finance stuff, the corruption, that's one thing. But Joe Biden should be impeached for the southern border. Joe Biden should be impeached for his crimes that he's committed at the southern border. Because if this goes unaccounted for, if Joe Biden is not held accountable for what for him and his party has done to our southern border, then every time a Democrat is elected, and I hope a Democrat's never elected again, and they shouldn't be, and maybe they won't be for a long time if Donald Trump wins this election, because people will see exactly what the problem has been this entire time. If these last 2 elections weren't enough, if this wasn't a big enough comparison for these people, when Donald Trump gets back in the office and shows everybody that it doesn't have to be this way, you just have to stop voting for these corrupt politicians and the Washington swamp, then Democrats may never get another vote again. These people, they may be out of power for decades. I don't know, maybe a generation. But this is their plan. Their plan is to make sure they solidify their votes. And the way they do that is by allowing these illegal aliens, these illegal immigrants to come in, and so that all these people have children and then tell their children to vote Democrat. This is how it goes. When you ask a Democrat why they're a Democrat, or if you ask someone like me, I was a Democrat because my parents were Democrats. They were Democrats because their parents were Democrats. The parents are the ones that influence their children on who they vote for until they turn into adults and grow wise. It's unfortunate that the Democrats are the party of the younger generations. They just are. They always have been. It's unfortunate that they're the party of the black minority community. Why that is, I have no idea. Democrats haven't done a damn thing for the black communities ever. Ever. In fact, Donald Trump did more for black America than any president the last 5 decades, including our first black president. So it's Democrats can only trick their voters into voting for them. They are the party of deception. That is what they are. They deceive their voters. And they know that they must keep the younger voters because as Democrats get older, not all the time, but most of the time when you grow wise, when you grow older, you grow wiser, you realize exactly what the Democrat Party is. This is why they need a new flood of voters. And those voters are going to come in the form of immigrant children. That's how this is going to go. This is how they're going to solidify that. And then, so they know that so they're playing the long game while simultaneously trying to get Joe Biden across the finish line again. They're not going to get Joe Biden across the finish line through policy ideas. They're not going to get Joe Biden across the finish line by saying he's a terrific president. They're going to use lawfare. They're going to weaponize the justice system and use lawfare to defeat Donald Trump. And the way that they're going to do this is they're going to, A, try and remove him from ballots in these various states. You had Colorado just announced Donald Trump will be on the ballot. Michigan said that Donald Trump is going to be on the ballot. And then also Maine, just about 30 minutes ago, Maine has come out and said that they are not allowing Trump on the ballot. So you have all these other states that are doing this ballot tactic where they're trying to just subvert democracy and the will of the American people by removing their candidate of their choosing. And yeah, so much for the defenders of democracy, right? But it's not going to work. So this isn't, I don't think this is their plan. I think what they're doing with these ballot removal tactics, with this whole crew going in and suing in these states, trying to get Donald Trump removed, I think it's nothing but a distraction. I think this is all put forth. All this was planned about 2 years ago about how they were going to get Joe Biden across the finish line again by using lawfare. And so they're trying to get Donald Trump past the primaries. They want him to win the primaries but lose the general election. That is the goal. And they think one of the ways they can do that is by getting a conviction of Donald Trump. And it's not just me that says that. I got an article here. This was always kind of my hunch that this is what they were trying to do, but we pretty much got verification here in this article. Damn, I actually had one more thing I wanted to add about the migrant crisis. So the migrant crisis has the United States taxpayers on the hook for up to, get this, $451 billion, the House GOP report says. So Americans could pay up to $451 billion to care for migrants who entered the U.S. illegally, but have been released into the country or escaped from custody, according to a new report due out Monday from House Republicans and obtained exclusively by the Post. So every day, millions of American taxpayer dollars are spent on costs directly associated with illegal immigration and the unprecedented crisis at the southwest border, sparked by the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' policies, the House Homeland Security Committee interim staff report says. So $451 billion is going to the migrant crisis. You people that support this disaster that's happening at the southern border, you need to wake up and unplug yourself from CNN and MSNBC, because you people are morons. Okay, you are not creating a humane southern border, all right? You are not helping these immigrants by allowing them to illegally cross into our country to gain asylum, to then milk the taxpayers, work under the table without paying taxes so that they can send all their money home, and then after they got enough money, return back home. There is no such thing as economic asylum. I am sorry. That is not why we allow immigrants to claim asylum. If these people want to come into the country for economic reasons, they must come in by legal channels. Economic is not a legit reason to seek asylum. It's just not. I'm sorry, it's just not. So I wanted to get that out of the way. So all right, so moving on. So back to the Donald Trump. Oh yeah, and Biden asked Congress last month to pass a $14 billion bill in additional border security funding to aid the processing of migrants, to reimburse state and local governments and non-governmental organizations and provide other services. That is where the problem is, folks, is these NGOs. These NGOs, these migrant leaders, these people are the ones that are causing all these problems, and they're making millions and millions of dollars doing it. These nonprofit corporations or these non-government organizations that are taking taxpayer money and essentially destroying their own country. So the taxpayers, not only are the taxpayers watching their country be destroyed right in front of their face, but they are paying for it through these non-government organizations that are pushing these migrants to the southern border, giving them notes on exactly what to say to claim asylum, and essentially allowing this invasion, not allowing it, but they are complicit in the destruction of this country. These migrant leaders, these lawyers for these NGOs down there at the southern border, aiding and abetting the cartels. All this is happening, folks, over money. It's all freaking corrupt. The whole damn system is corrupt. All of it. The whole system's corrupt. But in the meantime, Joe Biden and all these rich elite Democrats at CNN, Joe and Mika, that live in a $2 million condo in Boca Raton, all the MSNBC anchors and CNN anchors, they don't give a flying shit what happens to you, because everything that this administration does that hurts me and you doesn't even affect them. They don't give two shits. Why would they care? Why would Joe and Mika care about jobs? Do you think their job is going to get taken by an illegal worker? No. You know what? If Joe and Mika are so happy, if the anchors at CNN and MSNBC are so dedicated to allowing illegal asylum seekers in here for economic purposes, then why don't they resign from their positions at CNN and MSNBC and give their job to an asylum seeker? Why doesn't that happen? So these people are so fake, they're so fraudulent, and they're not affected by this at all. It's all bullshit, man. And what sucks is these people get on the air and they talk their listeners and their viewers into voting for Joe Biden. They brainwash their viewers literally with propaganda from the administrative state. We have state-run media. We have a media apparatus that works for the Biden administration, that works for the White House, that works for the Congress. We have state-run media now. It may not seem that way, but I guarantee you it's probably even being funded by the administrative state somehow, some way. Because there's no way none of these cable outlets like CNN and MSNBC, they don't even have big viewership, folks. Like, they're not getting millions and millions of viewers every day. Hell, you have some shows on YouTube. You have conservative networks that are getting 18 times more viewership than places like CNN in a day. So it's not somebody is funding these outlets. These outlets are not profitable, but yet they're not changing course. They know they're losing viewership. So what is the point? The point is they are nothing but administrative state propaganda outlets to brainwash the American voter into voting against their own best interest. That is what they're there for. And then Joe and Mika and all these anchors and these talking heads at MSNBC and the Pravda media outlets can go home to their multi-million-dollar mansions, go home to their New York flats. They could sleep well at night because they know they're going to be able to wake up the next morning and go right into their job and do it all over again. Nothing that is happening to this country affects these people. They don't care how much their groceries cost. They don't care about how much gas costs. They don't care about the millions and millions of illegal immigrants coming into the country. They don't care about the wars overseas. They don't care about anything. Because nothing that this administration has done, none of the Democrat policy ideas or their ideologies affect these people negatively whatsoever. Because they are so disconnected from regular America. They don't feel it. They don't even realize what's going on. This is why these people, you have Joy Behar getting on the air and saying, I don't know why people are complaining about the economy. The economy's doing great. These people are lost. They are so disconnected, man. They cannot see what is happening. But yet these are the same people that are trying to convince you into voting for your own self-destruction. Not going to do it. I'm sorry. I know how these people operate because I used to be there. I used to be gullible. I used to listen to these people talking about, oh yeah, we were all immigrants, so we should allow all these people to come in so that they can get jobs and live the American dream. It doesn't work that way anymore. Why did it stop working that way? And when? Well, it stopped working that way back in the 1920s when we started a welfare system. The great Milton Friedman said it best. You can have a free immigration system, so you can have free migration, or you can have a welfare state. But you can't have both, period. You can't just give everybody in the entire world free food stamps, free health care. You can't do it. Free housing. You can't do it. It is unsustainable. The Democrats' ideas, and not just for this country, but their ideas as a whole, their policy ideas, their societal ideas, their cultural ideas, everything they do is so broken. Their ideas suck and they hurt people, is all it does. They don't know anything about anything. So I wanted to get back into this real quick before we get off here. I wanted to get into this article that I got from Darren Beattie about who is the architect behind the efforts to stop Trump in 2024. Who are the people behind all this political warfare that we're watching being weaponized against Donald Trump like a bludgeon to interfere in our elections? Well, I got an article here. This just came out. This came out yesterday from the Revolver News. And one of the people is called Norm Iesen. This is somebody that you need to keep an eye on. I've heard other conservative content creators and podcasters talk about this, talk about Norm Iesen, and for good reason. This guy is behind almost all of the investigations into Donald Trump for the last 8 years. Both the impeachments, both of the congressional investigations. He is behind almost every single lawfare tactic used against Donald Trump the last 8 years. And we're on to him. And he's not just disappearing. This guy, he's there. He's actively working behind the scenes. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the main head guy leading all of these charges in these different states, because it's all one gigantic plan. All these people have a role to play. They were all given a job, and they are to carry out that job in order for Democrats to win the election. Because if Donald Trump wins, all these people most likely should be charged and indicted on conspiracy to violate people's voting rights. They should be charged, they should be convicted and sent to jail or prison. for conspiring to interfere in our elections by using lawfare, exactly what they're doing now. And so trust me when I say this guy is behind the scenes. He's out there. He's behind the scenes doing something. So Norm Iesen is more than just another shadowy figure in the deep state. He's been a pivotal force in the crusade to derail Trump's first term and thwart his attempts at a White House comeback in 2024. Many have labeled him as the architect of the Stop the Trump movement, and that isn't far off the mark. After all, you can spot his fingerprints on practically every single plot aimed at putting an end to Trump's political aspirations. The latest schemes, including the push to jail President Trump and keep him off the ballot, can be traced back quite easily to Mr. Iesen. In fact, in one of his New York Times op-eds, Iesen seems to have inadvertently spilt the beans. Charlie Kirk highlights how Norm essentially brags that the Dems' ticket to victory is to imprison Trump. Yeah, so they want to get a conviction. I mean, I've been saying this for weeks and months, so you've been listening to me talk about this forever. They must get a conviction of Donald Trump so that they can try and persuade the voters, look, you don't want to vote for a felon, do you? You don't want to vote. They think it's actually going to hurt Donald Trump, and I think it's actually going to help Donald Trump. This is where I disagree with Revolver News. So here is a close-up of the New York Times article written by Norm. So it says, so the New York Times says, new data from our work. So this is the New York Times article op-ed that Norm Iesen wrote. It says, new data from our work with the Research Collaborative confirm the repercussions of a possible conviction on voters. These questions do not ask directly how a conviction would affect people's votes, but they still support movement in the same direction. This survey, conducted in August and repeated in September, and then repeated a second time in September for different pollsters, asked how many voters felt about prison time in the event that Mr. Trump is convicted. At least two-thirds, including half of Republicans, favored significant prison time for Mr. Trump. I don't believe that for a second. I'm sorry, I don't. Moreover, recent electoral history suggests that merely having Mr. Trump on the trial will alter how voters see the importance of voting in the first place. In the wake of the January 6th committee hearings, the 2022 midterms saw turnout at record levels in states where at least one high-profile MAGA Republican was running. The criminal cases are also unfolding within a wider context of other legal challenges against Mr. Trump, and they may amplify the effect. That includes several state cases that seek to disqualify him under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Colorado's top court has already ruled that he is disqualified, though the case is likely to be appealed to the Supreme Court, and I will add, it will be overturned in the Supreme Court. The constellation of developments also encompassing the New York civil fraud trial after a negative lens through which Americans may view Mr. Trump. Again, this is all hypothetical, but the polls give us significant data to conclude that felony criminal convictions, especially for attacking democracy, will foreground the threat that Mr. Trump poses to our nation and influence voters in an election-defining way. So in other words, this is their plan. Everything's going according to their plan. They wanted convictions. They wanted the civil trial. They wanted the 14th Amendment. This is the conspiracy to interfere in our elections. This is exactly what I'm talking about, why all these people need to be charged and indicted. On a giant federal RICO case, that's what I say. Lock them all up. Arrest all of them. Arrest every single one of these people that were involved in this giant conspiracy to interfere in our election by using political lawfare, and you need to charge and indict them. Period. That's what I say, or else these people will never stop. These people, if Norm Iesen was held accountable for the very first impeachment that he oversaw, which was probably the Russia collusion hoax, or the Ukraine phone call, if he was held accountable then, he wouldn't be doing this right now. But because these people are never held accountable for their actions, like interfering in our elections constantly and trying to subvert democracy and the will of the American people, if they were held accountable, we wouldn't even be here. So Darren Beattie of Revolver has been keeping a close eye on Mr. Iesen for years, tracking his maneuvers to impeach President Trump, silence patriots, and even take a swing at Revolver. Among other diabolical actions, recently Darren noticed something rather telling. Norm's fingerprints are seemingly all over the recent Colorado decision to ban President Trump from the ballot. He says, here is Darren Beatty from Revolver. He says, Norm Eisen drafted 10 articles of impeachment against Trump before Trump's phone call with Zelensky even took place, and went on to serve as special counsel in the first impeachment proceedings against Trump. Eisen worked with his colleagues on a lawsuit claiming Trump violated the emoluments clause before he was even sworn in. Incidentally, his colleague Joseph Sellers represented Congressman Benny Thompson in his January 6th lawsuit against Trump, which later became the basis for the second impeachment against Trump and the January 6th committee report. Indeed, it would hardly be an exaggeration to say that Norm Eisen has been a key architect of nearly every attempt to delegitimize, impeach, censor, sue, and remove the democratically elected 45th President of the United States. All in the name of democracy, of course, right? Years ago, we first brought Norm Eisen's name to national attention in the context of his work on color revolutions overseas, and the fact that he was deploying the same tools as a lawfare operative to undermine Trump that he would use in the State Department to undermine foreign leaders deemed to be adversaries of the United States. So you're talking about people that would coordinate essentially government toppling tactics overseas. They would topple foreign governments. People like Norm Eisen are specifically designed and trained to topple governments and topple government and government elections and to essentially they replace entire regimes in foreign countries. Those same people are involved in our own elections now. In our own elections. So this guy actually conducts color revolutions in foreign countries. He is a lawfare operative that undermines foreign governments so that they can replace the leaders that benefit the United States. These same people, these same operatives are the same people that are involved in interfering in our elections here. They're trying to topple our leadership here in this country. So you have the weapons and tools that the American taxpayer have given this government, and now this government has used those tools and weapons that we provided them against us to topple our own democracy. This is insane to me. And Norm Eisen is one of those operatives. So our piece on Mr. Eisen is eye-opening to say the least, and we'd highly suggest you read it. In fact, Norm is the chief architect of taking color revolution regime change tactics, honed by the CIA abroad, and using them to perform a coup on President Trump by any means necessary. You guys heard of coups happening across the world, like in different governments. You read about it in papers. They may do like a one-paragraph article in some newspaper you've never heard of, or you're scrolling through social media and you glance at an article that talks about how a regime was overthrown by a coup, or a successful coup has taken place in the Congo or whatever crazy country. Most likely, it's done by us, by our CIA operatives. We actually have entire branches of our intel agencies that are specifically designed, like special forces operators, to go into these countries and overthrow them by using the same tactics we're seeing being used on Americans today, like January 6th. They would create fake insurrections and then accuse their opponents of it. This is what they do, man. So you're talking about entire branches of intel agencies being used, the same tactics too, being used against American leadership, against Americans in this country. This is why things seem so crazy. This is why you have former presidents being SWAT raided early in the morning over documents. All of this is a plan, folks. It's not organic at all. None of this is arising organically. All this has been planned for at least 18 to 24 months. At least. And right now, we're starting to see their plan come to fruition. So this is why I say it's so important to have situational understanding so that we can predict and conduct countermeasures to what these people are trying to do. We have to be smarter than the Washington swamp. And we are. The American people, as a whole, we know what's best for this country. And this is why they are trying to subvert Donald Trump from being elected. This is why they're trying to kneecap Donald Trump, because they know that the American people are going to elect Donald Trump. They know that Donald Trump is going to win. And because they know Donald Trump is going to win, they can't have that, because it essentially, their entire corrupt temple comes crashing down on their heads. And so they're using the same tactics they would use to overthrow and topple governments in a far, far distant land. They're using those same tactics here. And Norm Eisen is one of those people. And so I think it would behoove us to pay attention to people like Norm Eisen, and I am, So Darren Beatty goes on. He says Norm was also the chief architect of the January 6 kangaroo court hearings aimed at taking MAGA out of the political arena. We know that was the January 6th Fedsurrection. We've done multiple episodes on this, how that was a false flag operation conducted by the United States intel agencies against the American people, against its own people. We know that. That's what that was. And years down the road, even now, we're starting to realize that that's exactly what that was. When you have hundreds of undercover informants, we don't even know how many there are, because when we ask the leadership, when we ask Chris Wray, we ask the FBI and CIA and all these other heads of state, was there undercover informants at the Capitol on January 6th that day? They say, we can't tell you. It should be a no, right? But it's not. That's because they had hundreds there. That's why. That entire January 6th riot was orchestrated by people like Nancy Pelosi, Yogananda Pittman, Norm Iesen, and I can't even tell you how many other operatives that, look, they are the same tactics used in foreign countries, right? These same type of things happen in foreign countries. And they're being used here now. They used January 6th. They needed January 6th to happen. Who did January 6th benefit the most? The Democrats. Why? Well, first of all, it allowed Nancy Pelosi to certify that election almost immediately that day with no challenges since the riot. So they wanted that riot so that it would push the certification through with no challenges, because the last thing that they wanted was legal challenges happening to this election, because they knew that all these crazy things that we're now starting to see, that's now starting to come to light, like the ballot machines, Dominion voting software, and misplaced ballots here and misplaced ballots there in an election where 42,000 votes decided who was president. The last thing Nancy Pelosi wanted was any challenges to that election. So boom, right there, Democrats benefited because it forced the certification of that election. They also benefited because they were able to get a J6 committee together, a unconstitutional committee where Nancy Pelosi rejected the Republican nominees and handpicked her own. And they just so happened to be Republicans that hated Donald Trump the most. Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney. They used this committee to get what? To get a J6 report. This January 6th report that you, the taxpayer, paid millions of dollars to get. I don't know how much. I think like $44 million. So the American taxpayer paid millions and millions of dollars for a J6 report that was put together by an unconstitutional partisan J6 select committee. They're now using that report to try and remove Donald Trump from the ballot in all these states, in like 24 states or a dozen or more states. So there you go. So Democrats were the only people that benefited fully from the January 6th riot. And so it was all planned, folks. All this that we've been witnessing the last 2.5, 3 years has all been part of one gigantic psyop. It's all one gigantic plan, all being conducted by the same intel agencies, using the same tactics that they use to topple foreign countries and foreign governments, all benefiting the corrupt Washington establishment. Notice that this crew, this Republican, it's a Republican establishment that's actually in all these states trying to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. It's CREW, C-R-E-W. Most of them are Republicans. Most of the people donating the money to this organization, to this outfit that's trying to remove Donald Trump from the ballot, are Republican billionaires. So this is not a Democrat-Republican issue. I wish Democrats would open their eyes and see that this is so far beyond your normal partisan politics, Republican, Democrat. It's way beyond that. We are so far beyond Republican, Democrat partisanship here. This is the people versus the machine. And I'm sorry, but this election, I know it's taboo to say it, and I know it's said so many times, this is the most important election of your lifetime. Because if the Washington establishment is able to get this through, is able to get Joe Biden across the finish line, then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid it'll probably be the end. It'll be the end of this country as we know it. You will see this place turn into a third world banana republic, where the Washington establishment picks and chooses who they install as president, where we go to endless wars so that the military-industrial complex and all the corrupt politicians in the swamp can continue to have their money laundering machines. That's what wars are these days. We haven't went to a real war since World War II. All of the rest of these wars have been nothing but money laundering scandals. And so all these people will continue to get rich in wars that the American taxpayer don't want to be in. You won't have free and fair elections anymore. You will continue to be in $33, $43, $53, $63 trillion in debt. They will force your kids and your grandkids to be Russian serfs because anybody, like Steve Bannon says, anybody under 35 won't own anything. It'll be impossible to buy homes. They'll allow you to make just enough money to put groceries on the table and fill your gas tank so that you can go back to work to continue paying taxes. Listen, it's all up to the 2024 election. If Donald Trump is elected, he has promised, and I'm sorry, but compared to other presidents, yes, you can say there was quite a bit of failings with the Trump administration as far as getting certain policies done, like the wall. But if I'm going to trust anybody to actually go through with their promises made to the American people during his campaign, it's going to be Donald Trump, because I have never in my lifetime ever seen a president that has accomplished what he has promised as much as Donald Trump. So if I trust anybody to actually do it, it's Donald Trump. Nikki Haley, I'm sorry, folks, she is a freaking disaster. This woman is dumb as a box of rocks. I hope people do not take Nikki Haley seriously. Listen to me. If you're listening to the show and you don't listen and you don't like Donald Trump, but you're a Republican, if you're one of those never Trumpers, Nikki Haley is a moron. Not only will she not win the election against Joe Biden, because this lady has got some serious skeletons in her closet, and trust me, we're going to be going through them in the coming weeks. But this woman is, I'm telling you, dumb. She is dumb. You're talking about somebody that was broke until she begged Donald Trump to get into, to be a high-level position for the ambassadorship for the EU. And the next thing you know, she's worth $2 or $3 million. It is so typical. She is the Washington swamp. She is the establishment. This is why she's held up, and all these Washington establishment donors are paying her billions of dollars to flood the market with freaking ads, to brainwash the people. I'm sorry. Nikki Haley is not going to win against Joe Biden. She is a loser. Nobody but Donald Trump is going to win this election, because none of these candidates have got record amount of votes one time and then a record amount of votes a second time. None of them. Starting with a new candidate like Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis is essentially starting all over again. The guy that lives in a cabin up in the Alaska mountains that comes down to town is not going to leave his cabin and come down to vote for Nikki Haley. Nobody even knows who Nikki Haley is. I am sorry. Donald Trump is the most popular, the most famous person in the world. The guy that lives up in the mountains, that comes down every 2 years to cast a ballot, knows who Donald Trump is. All right? You're not getting that from Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley. I'm sorry. These people are establishment plants. Man, we went on along here. But so I want to go ahead and finish this article before we head out here. So Darren Beattie goes on to talk about Norm Iesen. He says, but will he get away with it? Not if Dr. Beattie has anything to do with it. If Trump is convicted of a crime, could he lose some support? Possibly, but it might only be from those voters who are on the fence about him. However, if the polls are anything to go by, most of America seems to see through this charade. Every time Trump faces an indictment, his poll numbers soar. It's likely that a conviction could actually end up boosting his support as well. But that's a risk the regime is willing to take. For them, the stakes have never been higher. I agree. I agree with Darren Beattie wholeheartedly. I think these people are going to convict Donald Trump. They have to. They have to. This is why Jack Smith was trying to leapfrog over the appellate's court and take it right to the Supreme Court, because these people are running out of time. But just like Donald Trump's attorney said, I don't think any of these cases are even going to see the light of day before the election. I really don't. I don't know how they make this happen. I don't. Unless Jack Smith supersedes a insurrection indictment, unless Jack Smith supersedes an indictment on insurrection and charges Trump with insurrection. But then the defense is not going to have ample time to defend, to build a defense. It's not going to happen, folks. I'm telling you, the Supreme Court is going to interject at some point in time. And they already are. They already are taking up big cases that, if ruled against, it essentially ends Jack Smith's entire charade. And that's already coming down the pipe. And I think the Supreme Court knows at its core that the Supreme Court itself is at risk of collapse if Democrats win this election. I think the Supreme Court knows, based off the pressure. You have people threatening Brett Kavanaugh's life. You have Democrats that threaten the Supreme Court. You have the Supreme Court being threatened with stacking the courts. I think the Supreme Court can see the Democrat Party is the most destructive political force that this country has ever seen right now, because it's not the Democrat Party anymore. It's the radical left party. And so even the Supreme Court realizes that its own very existence is teetering on the edge during this election. And so I think they have no choice but to interject in these cases. I'm not saying that they're going to rule because of that, but I think they're going to interject themselves because they know that the fate of the country rests in their hands. And all they have to do is follow the Constitution. That is what the best part about all of this, folks, is that we have the United States Constitution on our side in all of these cases. We have the First Amendment. We have the Fourth, the Fifth, the Sixth Amendment, the 10th Amendment. The Constitution is on our side. And the framers of this country would be extremely proud of all of you, all of us. They would be extremely proud with the fight that we're putting up here. And we cannot stop. I think as these cases go on, the support for Donald Trump is going to increase because America loves the underdog. They just do. They love the freaking underdog. And I actually looked into this. Here are a couple reasons why I think the more that these cases go on and the more that they kneecap Donald Trump and bash him and headbutt him and pound him into the ground, the more the American people are going to support him. Here is an article from 2013 by the Elite Daily. It says, the American dream has always been about the underdog. It says, in the midst of another frustrating bracket, ripping my paper to shreds after a slew of upsets sent my top picks packing, I stopped to think about where all this came from. While I was crying about the early exit of Georgetown, people were all about ready to throw a parade for Florida Gulf Coast, and then it hit me. Americans are literally born in a land founded on and by underdogs. Our country and the very fabric of our existence as the United States of America come from our ability to rise up and excel during improbable circumstances, dating all the way back to the Revolutionary War. I realized that whether in sports, movies, business, or everyday life, our nature is to pull for those who are down on their luck and hoping for a miracle. If school taught me anything about history, it was that we were definitely not supposed to win the Revolutionary War. Had it not been for this historic victory that resulted in the independence of this country, we would probably be under the reign of a monarch thousands of miles away, overtaxing us on tea and stamps. Now I know everything is overpriced these days anyway, but there's not denying the satisfaction of overpaying in the name of the United States. This battle that occurred almost 250 years ago still resonates with us because of the amount of pride we have in doing something that was deemed improbable. The fact that this nation was founded under such improbable circumstances can easily explain why we still love the story of the underdog to this very day. That's right. I think people love the underdog. America loves the underdog. And all the Democrats are doing is turning Donald Trump into the underdog. That's what they're doing. Donald Trump is the underdog. Think about it. It is big Washington swamp nasty government against one man. One man that they can't stand. One man that they fear the most. It is the American people do not like bullies. And the United States government, Jack Smith, Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, all these Democrats, Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, all these people are the bullies. Think about that. They are the bullies, and they're bullying Donald Trump. And people don't like bullies. And the American people love the underdog. They cheer for the underdog. And this is why the American people aren't just going to cheer for Donald Trump like they're cheering for him now. And that's why you see his poll numbers increasing every time they do something crazy against him. But if the American people have the ability to give the underdog a fighting chance, to fight back against the bully, if voting for Donald Trump is a giant middle finger or even a fist to the face of a bully, then the American people are going to go to the polls in droves and vote for Donald Trump. Because I'll tell you what, a vote for Donald Trump is the biggest middle finger I can think of to the Washington establishment. And listen, two things that the American people are starting to notice. Donald Trump is the underdog, and all these lawyers and attorney generals and prosecutors, Jack Smith, Letitia James, Big Fannie Willis, Alvin Bragg, Merrick Garland, Joe Biden, these people are the bullies. And so that's why I think Donald Trump is going to win in this election. And that is why I think his support is continuing to go up. But don't buy this Nikki Haley stuff, folks. You're going to start seeing massive ads and this fake support come out for Nikki Haley. It is just because the establishment is dumping millions and millions of dollars into getting Nikki Haley. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. It's such a waste of money. It is so ridiculous. They're going to make it seem like Nikki Haley is close and closing the gap on Donald Trump, but it's not real. None of it is real. And if the American people loving the underdog and hating bullies isn't enough hope as to why Donald Trump will win the election, I have one more piece of article here that I'm going to read before we head out. I know the shows went on for way too long, but this should give you some hope too. This just assures me that the Democrats and Joe Biden know that Donald Trump is likely to win the election. Because, listen to this article. This came out December 14th. Hat tip to Jim Hoft at the Gateway Pundit. It says, Congress passes legislation blocking future presidents from exiting NATO without Senate approval. So these people are essentially getting ready for Donald Trump. And that's not the only article I have. I don't have the time to read the other one. I'll leave it in my podcast description. But essentially what you're seeing from the Biden administration right now is that they are burrowing the bureaucrats into their positions in the Washington establishment. And so on the chance that Donald Trump wins, so the way that they see it is, yeah, we're going to do everything we can to kneecap Donald Trump and subvert democracy and try and defeat him by using political lawfare. But just in case he does win, we're going to make sure that the bureaucracy that we set up, the Washington swamp, is so burrowed in that Donald Trump will never be able to get rid of them. And so right now they're passing legislation to burrow all these bureaucrats in these positions in the Washington swamp and to make it harder and harder for them to be fired. And so why would they do that if they didn't think that there was a high probability of Donald Trump getting elected? Folks, they know Donald Trump is going to win. And they are throwing all the Hail Marys that they can find. They are like in the fight right now, just like looking down at the ground, closing their eyes and just swinging fists. That is what they're doing. And I'm not saying they could land a knockout punch. I'm not saying that that's not a very effective way to fight. I mean, it's not efficient, but it does lead to some knockouts once in a while. But, as far as I can see, I just see way too much going in Donald Trump's favor between the trial dates of all his cases not seemingly not going to be heard before the election. You have, there's the Biden administration burrowing in bureaucrats into their positions in the Washington bureaucracy. There's just a lot of signs that these people are preparing for Donald Trump to win the presidency in 2024. So I don't know, but that doesn't mean we can stop. We must make sure that we get people out to vote. This year is going to be insane. Like I said earlier in the show, if you think 2023 was insane when it comes to politics, we haven't seen nothing yet. 2024 is going to be like anything we've ever seen. You're going to see some of the wildest stuff you've ever heard of happening. This is going to be history-making stuff. We already are making history right now, but I'm saying in 2024 is going to be wild. They are going to be talking about these days for generations. This is going to be a pivotal moment for the United States of America, for democracy, for this country, for everything. It's not going to be the same because they're already taking a sledgehammer to everything. They're going full Mad Max here, man. They are going full they're going full tyrant. They're like I said, they are just throwing fists like crazy and not even looking. And so they're getting desperate. And the more desperate these people get, the worse things are going to get. So the closer we get to the election and the more Donald Trump's poll numbers go up, the crazier and more desperate these people are going to get. And there's nothing more desperate than a cornered animal. They're going to lash out. So we'll see. Anyways, I wanted to leave you guys with a little bit of hope. Just know that if these people are preparing for Donald Trump to win, then I think he's probably going to win. So we'll see. These people aren't dumb, man. They're not dumb. And as far as Norm Iesen, I'm going to keep an eye on this, and I have a lot more research to do about him. But essentially, he was behind all the Donald Trump investigations, the congressional investigations, the impeachment, and he is going to be behind the 2024 election. And so this is why the meme of today's show is situational understanding. It is very, very important, and it is very tactful to make sure we know and understand the situation that we're heading into so that we can make very informative decisions and so that we can conduct effective countermeasures to whatever the Democrat Party is up to. Because we know, you know, and I know that the Democrat Party is up to something. What that something is, I don't exactly know, and we probably won't know until after the election. And you have people like Molly Ball writing a piece in the New York Times telling us and bragging about how they got Joe Biden across the finish line. We're not going to know until after the election. However, that doesn't mean we can't try. So if you think you know what their plan is, send me a message, StevenTaurielloShow@gmail.com. I'm curious to know what you think their plan is. I told you what I think their plan is. I think they're going to weaponize the justice system. That's their plan. And if that don't work, they still have the long game of flooding the country with future Democrat voters. But if you think you know what their plan's going to be, or you have an idea or maybe a hunch, let me know. Because I'm always constantly watching these people. I'm always trying to think of what their plan is. Because like I said, it's extremely advantageous for us to know what their plan is so that we can respond appropriately. That is the key. And they always know what we're thinking. Republicans are so slow. Democrats work circles around the Republicans, man. So, but the MAGA movement, the MAGA Trump people, the red-blooded patriotic Americans, we're built a lot differently, man. We are America. We are the backbone of this place. And so if these people want to change this country, they're going to have to come through us first. So make sure you tune in to tomorrow's segment. I'll be releasing it around the same time. I don't exactly know what we're going to talk about, but trust me, there's a lot of stuff we got to get into. It's election year officially now, folks, and there is no rest for the wicked, and so therefore we will not be resting. As all these other podcasts are taking Christmas break, we're going to be in here scrapping hard against these people, against these wicked, evil people. So we're not taking any breaks here. So if you could, I appreciate it. Follow the show on Rumble. We're actually getting up there in viewership, which is awesome. I'd like to see that. I would rather see it on Rumble than YouTube, but you know, YouTube has the bigger reach, so you can find the show on YouTube. And as long as our show continues to stay up there, then I'll keep using it. I'll keep using it until they kick us off. That's all we can do. You can also find the show on TikTok, all social media platforms. Follow the podcast anywhere podcasts are found. And also, if you could, I really appreciate it. Leave a 5-star review. Let me know what you think about the show. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. So I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great weekend. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.